Hey there, welcome to the Gyro Step Podcast Network. This is a collaboration podcast featuring myself, Ty Windisch, my co-host, Rohan Katti, Winning Sixes superstar, Jordan Treske, and by proxy, Adam McGee, who unfortunately could not make the scheduled time, but we've got his tenets on the trade deadline, so we will share those throughout the pod as well. But we're excited. We're a week away from recording and from when this will first go up from the NBA trade deadline. There is a lot of speculation, as always. I don't know if we're going to see. Oh, we could see a superstar, move at the deadline. But fellas, how's it going?
Doing well. Excited for the trade deadline. It's a very exciting time of year. I feel like exciting is going to be a word that's used a lot, but it's ramping up. All the teams are trying to get their pieces in place for a playoff push or tanking. It's a good time of year. It's a busy time of year, and ready to dive into it.
I am excited, but I'm also probably on the side of downplaying expectations. Like, it's good for the Bucks to be in a position where it's like, oh, they don't have to make a big swing or all that stuff. I mean, we don't have to worry about a superstar that isn't playing for the team and is DMing Shaquille O'Neal, apparently. I don't like all that stuff.
Wait, did I miss that?
I missed that too.
Yeah, that's apparently something I saw today. Anyway, the big swings are not in the Bucks' favor, but there's obviously room for moves to be made on the margins, but there's also severe limitations that would prevent them from making big moves. So.
Yeah, so we're going to approach this podcast in three distinct sections. First, just kind of an overview of quickly like what the Bucks have and what they might need without going too deep into specific players, because section 2, we'll each throw out our favorite current fake trade, either that's been floated out there by others or that we just came up with ourselves. And Adam just sent a list of targets because he can't be bothered to use the trade machine anymore. So we'll read those too. And then third, we'll talk about some potential feasible, at least somewhat feasible, deals that could shake up the landscape, right? Because as you mentioned, Jordan, I think, I lost track already, the Bucks aren't probably going to shift too much about their team. There could be a slightly big move, but at the very, very least, the big three is set. That's not going to change. But there could be a star player not playing who is playing after the deadline, or who knows what else. So we'll go through some options and scenarios there that could shake up the league and alter the Bucks' outlook for the rest of the season. But first, what they have, as you mentioned, Jordan, not much. Second round picks, no first round picks to trade. So I think they have like 5 of them. They actually have still a decent amount, even after the Sam Merrill for Grayson Allen trade. And of course, the quote unquote young core, the 2 players that Bucks Twitter thinks is getting you everyone from Tyrese Halliburton to Harrison Barnes, even though the salaries are not even close, to everyone else, Dante DiVincenzo and Jordan Nwora. Also, there's a lot of people are throwing George Hill into trades. I'm not super fond of that. He's on the roster, makes $4 million. Everyone wants to trade Shemi. Just, I don't know what team is like, yeah, we're dying for Shemi. He doesn't make enough to even be that useful of a salary block, but everyone wants to trade Shemi. That's about, am I missing anything? Are there any big assets I haven't talked about?
I mean, you're delving into different conversations here when you talk about a guy like Brook Lopez, right?
Yeah.
Because that's like, are they going to trade him if they don't believe he can make it back for the playoffs? Which, according to reports from a while ago now, the Bucks do have optimism that he will return before the regular season is up.
Did you see my tweet?
No, I did not.
He's got all 1 inch of his vertical back. He's firing threes in the background of the All Access video. I'm waiting for the Bucks to edit that part out of the video now that there's been attention called to it. But he's shooting threes.
And we know he doesn't need a vertical to really do anything for the Bucks.
Never has.
So if they decide to include him in trades, that makes things a little spicier, because that's an actual tradable salary. It's a little over $10 million. So you can have some fun there, but I don't necessarily believe that they're going to do that.
Also, they have Don't they have like it's very small.
The trade exception?
Yeah. It's basically I don't think even minimum players would apply, right? Because it's like 1.6. So it's like right on the cut because it's from the Torrey Craig. Basically,
yeah, it's 1.6 mil. Yeah.
I don't think this is correct. According to Trade NBA, it actually expires today. So I don't know because all the dates are messed up because of when the various thing. So I don't know if that's going to be moved or not.
Because the calendar is so prorated. Yeah, it's got to be prorated. Right?
I would think so.
The deadline was late March last year because of obviously the whole season starting in December.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
there's also an 831,000 one from DJ Augustine that is supposed to expire soon. That I think is literally useless at this point.
It is.
And then 1.5 million from the Sam Merrill trade. So basically very similar to the Torrey Craig one. Yeah, not exactly needle moving. They have an open roster spot. They basically have this tool already, but whatever.
John Horst just like MacGyver's those trade exceptions out of nowhere.
Well, I mean, we know John Horst's history with trade exceptions.
That's very true.
Let's move it along here. But aside,
one last note on Lopez.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. It does open up a lot more possibilities in terms of salary, like you said. But from an assets perspective, if he's not going to play this year, it's probably a negative asset contract, right? I mean, as much as we all love
Is it expiring last year or next year?
Next year, yes.
Yeah.
So, but typically, I mean, if he's expiring at this season, then it's like, yeah, nobody cares. It's like the Joe Ingles thing, right? Like people are saying Joe Ingles being out for the year doesn't really change Utah's perspective that much, which is dark to think about. But like the teams mostly who would take him on don't really care about Joe Ingles. It's like get some money off the books, whatever. But next year, like I don't know how many teams want a big man who's going to be sidelined through the rest of this season on their books for next year. So, you know, at very least, it's like a neutral asset. Like maybe we get Brook Lopez and we can trade him or, you know, whatever. It's not that much next season, but it's not like there's no team out there who's like, oh, you're going to include Brook Lopez. We're going to up our offer. That's the sad thing about the situation. One of the many sad things about the situation is that it's like, yeah, it opens you up in salary, but you still are only offering like Dante, who is expiring, Wara, who is expiring, second round picks. So there's just, it seems like there's a very hard ceiling on the actual value that the Bucks could bring back in a trade.
Yep.
Yeah. And for those reasons, that's why I was saying I don't think they're necessarily going to include him in a trade, but I felt like it was worth mentioning as an asset.
No, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
It does open up more possibilities that are worth talking about. But okay. So that's what the Bucks have. Not much, essentially. Let's talk about what the Bucks need. I think some of this is a little obvious, but I will open the floor up to Jordan first. Actually, you know what? Instead of being all-encompassing, you can only pick one thing. Because I do think there's probably two that are up in the running. I think there's kind of a third one a little bit. The third one probably none of us would pick as our one. But if you could only trade for one type of player, what would you go for?
If for trade, this is very key for me. For trade, I would do probably wing defender. I think Michael Scotto of Hoopsite mentioned, I mean, it's not a surprise. Shemi hasn't worked out. They moved on for PJ Tucker. We all know that, whole story. That's where you're going to get some value. Adam and I talk about this all the time on the podcast that they actually have a positional need because Brook is out. So you would be tempted to get a big, but I also think those are pretty gettable in buyout markets. And just, there could be names that just, leave their teams for whatever reason. They don't have a role. They are stuck on a bad team, which there are a few. I just think it's a little bit more of an easier path to find someone rather than they still need some kind of switchy defender that can play the 3, the 4. Wes Matthews has been really necessary to this team, for better or for worse. But he, as much as he does give them size on the wing, I don't want to see him take up Nikola Jokic again, or these kind of front court guys where it's like you're putting him in a position where it's not necessarily just to succeed. It's more of like, hey, we're just putting you on there because we don't want to put Giannis on there for 48 minutes or whatever the case may be. So I would probably prioritize in a trade a wing defender who they are. I don't know. That's where it gets very tough.
Yeah, I think I would have to agree with that sentiment there. Just like in terms of like who I think the Bucks should be targeting via trade, I would even maybe specify it a little more. And it's like, instead of someone who's like a 3-4, I'd say straight just a 4, and someone who could even downsize a little bit more, or not deep downsize. What's the opposite of downsize? Upsize? That doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound right though.
It doesn't sound great. Upgrade, not upgrade though.
I think actually people would probably say size up.
Size up. That's it.
There we go.
English is such a stupid language. Oh my God. But like it's like someone who could play the 4 and someone who is capable of taking on front court guys like you mentioned, Jordan, someone who's going to be able to defend, stay on the floor. I'm basically saying they need to trade for a PJ Tucker is what I'm saying right now. And because we saw in the playoffs last season, PJ Tucker unlocked different lineups for the Milwaukee Bucks that were not previously available to him. He was a guy, and I know maybe he's not a perfect example because he's a little smaller. He's like, 6'4", 6'5", something like that.
I think he's 6'5",
and he was like 6'5" on a good day, so we'll say that. Like in the finals, they put him on Devin Booker. They're like, oh yeah, PJ, you're a starting 4, go or starting 2, 3, whatever. Yeah, just go guard Devin Booker, but also like be capable of switching onto 5s. Like, yeah, you can do that, right? Obviously, that's a lot to expect, and you can't expect someone, especially in this sort of market, to be able to provide all of that for the Bucks. But at least someone who's a capable defender at the 4 who can both, I guess, size up and downsize a little bit, and won't get played off the floor offensively. Needs to be able to handle themselves offensively.
Mm. I agree with you guys. I think we're all operating from the same premise that Brook comes back. If Brook doesn't come back, I think the answer does change, and you probably need more of a 4/5 or both, or maybe even just a 5. Because
I would disagree. I would disagree with that. I would disagree with that.
I would not. I would agree with what I said.
I would imagine you would. But the reason I'm pushing back on that a little bit is because what I mentioned earlier in terms of lineup flexibility with these 4s, in the sense that we saw PJ be a guy who can play next to Giannis at the 5, and Giannis at the 5 lineups just absolutely dominate throughout the entire playoffs. Even though Brook Lopez was a massive, massive part of this team during the last postseason run, we saw his role get a little bit marginalized. He excelled in that marginalized role. Don't get me wrong. They don't win the title without Brook Lopez, but that role became a little bit more marginalized. And we saw the Giannis at the 5 lineups with these tweener forwards sort of just take off and dominate. So that's why I would still say that's a priority, because they don't currently have that player. If you want to have, they at least have a 5 technically in Bobby Portis.
No,
he's technically
not.
He's there though. What I'm saying is he's there. They don't have the player.
I'll pose you this question. I'll pose you this, and if you have to scrap your entire defense to accommodate playing him as the nominal 5, is he really a 5? Or are you just admitting the Bucks are admitting like he's not? Like we have to play all these.
I mean, you can
defenses.
play defenses with 5s on the floor that are not drop defense. It's not just because they're not playing drop doesn't mean he's not a 5.
What does he do? What center stuff does he do defensively? Besides get cooked.
He's big.
He's not big enough. Who is more of what? Is Bobby Portis more of a 5, or is Chris Middleton more of a 4?
Bobby's more of a 5.
I disagree.
I would say Middleton's more of a 4.
I think I would feel a lot better asking Chris to play the 4 than I do Bobby the 5. I think the 5 is a bigger hole. Go ahead, Jordan. That's why I prioritize it.
I think the key to this is it's how the Bucks want to play. And they're doing their damnedest right now to play as good as they can defensively. And Bobby, we all know his limitations. I mean, even like you watched that Wizards game a couple nights ago. And when the Wizards were trying to get back into the fourth quarter and all that stuff, and it's like repeatedly putting him into like actions and stuff like that. Like he's not the greatest mover, obviously defensively, and he's a good rebounder, but he doesn't what is key with Brook is that he's the anchor where he could just level out guys and clear out space for them to dominate the glass. It's not the case with Bobby or Giannis, if we're being honest. So that's where it gets a little different, where they're doing what they can with him playing at the 5, and he is such a good offensive player for them that it kind of offsets what they're losing defensively. But they're still playing not the way that they want to play. They're still prizing versatility, but everything's still kind of based in wanting to play drop, and I don't know. That's where Bobby kind of it's really tough for him.
The reason I'm saying that I agree with everything you guys are saying. Don't get me wrong. I do agree with this sentiment. The reason I would prioritize more of a 4 is that we saw that the Bucks were at their best without Brook or Bobby on the floor.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
That, like, if you want to be a team that reaches its absolute apex, you need players who are capable of facilitating those lineups, which they currently do not have.
Against the teams they played in the playoffs last year, maybe. I think they're a lot better with Brook Lopez if you're playing Philly in the playoffs, or if you're playing Denver in the finals.
Even Cleveland, I mean, right now, their first round matchup, it seems like they're kind of going back and forth with who's the 4th seed, 5th seed, but Cleveland, that's a big front court right there. Yeah. And they've had trouble with them already.
And I think Brook really
I'd take a little stock in those regular season games.
I mean, yeah, that's fine. But I'm saying matchup-wise, like, still.
No, I see that sentiment. But I'm just, like, my base point is saying for the Bucks to reach their best form, they need someone who's capable of facilitating the Giannis of the 5 lineups.
Yeah.
I think they need the flexibility. But if you have to pick one, I feel better about being comfortable with my option with a strong 5 next to Giannis, so he can really be unlocked as that help defender, which is what they keep trying to do this. It's just not working, like, against strong offensives. I mean, the Denver game it didn't have to be as bad as it was, but it was a massacre. Like, I feel more comfortable if I have to push Chris into playing more 4 when Giannis is at the 5 than I do with Bobby or someone like that at the 5 in bad matchups for him. Like, I think at a certain point, it's kind of wild. We don't talk more, not just us 3, but like Bucks discourse. Why is Chris Middleton not the 4?
He doesn't handle the bigger guys well.
Just too much offensive load, because I feel like he used to be an elite 3-and-D player. He's not an elite defender anymore. I know, but it's like you don't have to be elite.
Which I think I think that's the biggest issue, though, is that he's just not who he used to be defensively.
But I think it was like how when Wes came a couple years ago, alleviating the load for him defensively did wonders for him offensively. Like that, that was the second All-Star year, was flirting with 50, 40, 90 as he does, and then falls off late. And we're like, well, there we go. But like it's not a matter of like he isn't as good defensively, even though I do agree with that.
Yeah.
It's more of like, if he's one of your high usage guys, you don't want him to kind of really, I mean, I'm trying to think of like 4s around the East, or, you don't want him necessarily like match up on Kevin Love, even though that isn't totally bad. It's
John Collins.
Yeah.
I feel good about
that kind of like
Harris.
these like very explosive 4s, even though I can't think of a single
Tatum.
one off my, yeah. I just think it's more of like preserving his just overall workload rather than
Julius Randle. Imagine Chris Middleton on Julius Randle.
Imagine the Knicks in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's fair.
Don't have to worry about that one. I think I think that, and also rebounding. He's under 6 per game again. He was at 6 for the last 3 years, which is not terrible, but
he's just not a super strong guy. He doesn't play super strong.
He doesn't play. I was going to say, I feel like he is. I feel like he has all the tools. He just does not play that way.
That's more of where I am, though. We have like the position that we kind of like want to lock down. But the reason why, like, PJ is a good example, is like, yeah, he's 6'5". He just is built like a freaking tree. Like, he has like tree trunk legs. Like, he can go up against DeAndre Ayton and then switch off to Devin Booker in Game 6 of the finals, or high leverage spots.
He's literally been a starting center.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
They just don't, like, Brooke is just a massive person, but like outside of that, like they it's more of like the body type that they kind of need. And I'm like, as we'll get into, like, there's not a lot of those guys. They're just like super mobile, super strong, can hit threes, like, and you're asking him to not be a center, and it's just really, really tough to find guys that are just like PJ. He's an anomaly in a lot of ways, both in his career arc, but just the way he's built and that he's last this long too. So like that's where I'm kind of at, where they certainly tried to do that with Shemi, but he hasn't played in forever, and then there's a reason why.
Yeah, you can't do anything at all. Is the issue there? I do think that's ultimately that's why the West Chris like 3-4 thing, as much as I maybe would prefer it to not having any center options at all, that is why it's not sustainable. Just as like the plan, those guys combined this year to average less than 8 rebounds per game, and I just don't know if you can consistently win when you're 3 and 4 are combining for that few rebounds. I mean, it helps that Drew is a good rebounder. If Grayson's starting, he's just been okay, like 3.5. When Dante was starting, I think that covered some of those things too, because Dante is, for all the warts, an excellent rebounder. That's probably the thing he does best on both ends.
He's a forward trapped in a guard's body. That's the problem. But
like a forward who also can't really dunk consistent. It's weird. We could spend all day talking about what Dante is or isn't. But I think we covered it well. And I think the debate really illustrates that there are two different things.
Yes.
They need. If Brook comes back, I think one of them, like the reasons we talked about, like if you can find a center as maybe a throw-in in maybe the trade for the 4 or buyout, that's fine if you expect Brook to come back. Like you don't need Brook and another center to play every night. They could use one right now, though, which was like the whole crux of the Boogie thing. Like, they just need a guy. They're just so small. But the 4 is the one that's like, there's no guy, no one's coming through that door, to paraphrase the common Twitter game. Like, they're not bringing PJ back from an injury. He's just gone.
Not bringing Georgios.
No, they're certainly not. Could you imagine?
I forgot about him.
Imagine if I don't think they can. I don't think they can bring him back. But imagine if they...
I think he's on a team. Did he get
He's on the Thunder.
Thunder? Yeah.
Oh my God. What is going on with the Thunder and former Bucks? It's like the weirdest Houston-Detroit continuation thing of like, we only want the guys who have never played real minutes for the Bucks.
DJ Wilson, Diakite, now Kalitzakis. Like, it's ridiculous.
Javonte Smart's going to be on the way, man. It's destined.
Is Justin Robinson already there?
He did play for OKC last year, so there is.
Oh my God,
good connection. Quickly before we move on to the fake trades, I want to go back to, I mentioned there was a third thing, kind of a role, and I didn't think, and no one did say it. I didn't think anyone would.
Can I guess what it is?
Yeah.
Point guard depth?
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like basically a third. It's kind of like the center thing of just like insurance there. Just because there have been times like when Grayson's out of the lineup or slumping and Hill is out, and Hill's going to be out for a little while now. And he's also just old and is not super offensively consistent game to game. They're so thin there. And that's why we saw Javonte Smart playing NBA minutes. We haven't really seen that with Wigginton yet. We saw Justin Robinson play a ton early in the year, and that did not go well. So just having even like another combo guard, and I know they're trying the Dante thing. He's just not a point guard. Like he can handle a little bit. He throws some nice passes, but I just don't.
Sometimes they go to the right guy.
Occasionally they do. He'll make that's the problem with.
He'll
Dante.
try his best. He'll make like cool passes, but sometimes they're just out of bounds or right to a defender, and it's like, oh cool. It's like, oh, he's going for a skip pass here, and it just like goes right through someone's hands, and it's like, cool, Dante. I like the energy. I like the intensity. Well, like, hit your guy, please.
I actually think that's like why it's so hard for some fans to evaluate Dante, because if you just try, like the Bucks did this recently, right? Like the best of Dante, like he looks amazing. Like the high end of Dante outcomes, it's like, oh my God, this guy's incredible. And then you watch the whole game and it's like, okay, that's 2 of 10.
Oh, he's 0 for 7 from the field and didn't hit any of his threes? Oh, right. Okay.
Oh, he's got 4 turnovers and 3 assists. And yeah.
honestly, he has a 1 assist to turnover ratio.
Yeah.
It's dead even.
And it's like, it's half of the most beautiful, like the turnovers are the worst turnovers and the assists are the most beautiful assists. He's a very polarizing player. Like if you catch him on all the right nights, I think this is what the Bucks are hoping for at the trade deadline. Some GM is like only tuning into the right games. They're like, this guy's a stud. We need this guy.
Maybe they saw the highlight package.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's why they
And
put
this
it out.
season, he's at 1.7 assists, 1.5 turnovers.
Yeah.
Did you watch the NCAA tournament from 4 years ago?
He's a clutch time player. Comes through in the biggest moments. But yeah, and especially if they do trade him, then you're even out that as like the emergency reserve point guard. So this doesn't have to be a big move at all. Like Corey Joseph, I don't know. He'd be fine to have. Maybe even Frank Jackson. I think the Pistons just have a couple of point guards they're not really using that much. Like someone like that. Nothing big, but it'd just be nice. People are going to say Teague. Even Teague, I think, would be a little helpful, even if he's not playing when George and Drew are healthy.
It's so
What's he
tough.
up to?
Chilling.
He's got his A. He's got his ring. He's good. He's becoming a teacher. That's what he's. He's like, I got the A on the group project. I'm going to be the teacher now.
Is the last final he needed to pass.
Oh. Okay, should we do fake trades?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait. Adam stuff before we forget.
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
The disrespect. Adam's tenets of the trade deadline. I'll read them. I'm not going to do an accent. I think it'd be insulting.
It would be for sure.
Yeah. So these there's 1, 2, 3. 1, go big or go home. Barring an amazing opportunity at another position, the only move should be for a center. So he's all in on centers. Kind of on my side, sort of, although my thing is theoretical.
I'm shocked.
Well, that
I'm
is
just
shocking.
absolutely shocked that
Usually we
Adam wants the
disagree.
big guys.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point. Number 2, if the right player or deal isn't there, don't force it. Horst needs to be prepared to play the buyout market, no matter how grim. Editors note it'll probably be pretty grim. Or even stand pat. This team could still win it all. It's not the time for panic moves for the sake of making a move. And number 3, I know you guys dove into this on the last Win in 6, I think. Or was it 2 Win in 6s ago? Personality might be just as important as basketball fit right now for the Bucks. That's the last one, right?
Yeah, I think so. It all bleeds together.
Yeah. Go listen to every Win in 6 ever to make sure you don't miss that.
Starting from the first one.
Yeah. You need about 3 years of your life to do it all, but it's worth the time.
Maybe more, probably 5.
Yeah.
It's like, what, 300 something, right?
350, nearly 60 at this point now.
Wow. You're basically at a point, like, I think someone, if they wanted to listen to all of them in a year, they'd have to listen to more than an hour a day.
Oh,
way more.
There's some that are ungodly long. We were basically streaming the podcast without streaming. That's how long they would be.
And then this is a good segue. So he also just included realistic targets. So hopefully this doesn't spoil too many of our trades we brought. But his ranked top 3 realistic targets: Derek Favors, Mo Bamba, Alex Len. So let's get into the fake trades. Let's start. Did anyone do a fake trade with those 3 guys? Any of them?
No.
No.
I did not.
Looked at Bamba, but I was like,
The Bamba ones are popular. I think it's actually, just to quickly talk about that, because there's a lot of people who are high on Mo Bamba. Seems relatively possible. It feels to me like Orlando is prioritizing Carter Jr. and they kind of just want to get something.
They extended him, right? Carter?
I think they did.
That sound, because it was
like a baby extension.
Yeah. I like that term. I want that to come out.
It was a baby. It looks awesome now. 4 years, $50 million.
That's
not bad.
That's a John Hammond special right there.
Hell
that
yeah.
is John Henson.
Because he still thinks it's like 2010.
Yes.
That is so close to the Miles Plumlee deal. It's crazy.
Larry Sanders is around that ballpark too. John Henson. Like, there's a lot of
centers 4 for 50.
Like, and it creeps up a little bit to inflation. I think. Oh no, Larry was Larry like 4 for 44.
He was like 444.
Yeah.
If Thon Maker hadn't requested a trade, 4 for 50.
He would have.
Let's not joke about that. That's possible.
We're coming up on 2 years or 3 that he literally just put a stick of dynamite in his career and just blew it up. That's what
he's killing it in the G League right now.
Oh, that's sad. But I think, what do you think, Rohan? I think you just talked about the baby extension, the Bamba idea.
I think Bamba, I don't know if it's necessarily possible. I feel like the reporting out there on Bamba is probably, this is just me assuming things right now.
You gotta play the game. You gotta read into the reports. They're never exactly what they seem.
I know, that's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say I don't have any other information.
No, I know. I'm just framing I'm letting the people know what you're cooking.
Yes. So I think teams are sort of trying to downplay his value a little bit. Because early in the season, I feel like the reporting out of Orlando was like, oh yeah, this guy's awesome. This guy is awesome. You guys, if you want him, you're going to need to pay a high price. And it's not like he's tailed off or anything. He's still producing pretty well for them. It's just all the reports are like, oh, maybe they're going to trade Bamba. Maybe they're going to trade Bamba. Like, do you want Mo Bamba? Is that why you're saying that you want Mo Bamba? I don't know. I still feel like Orlando, if they're going to trade him, they're going to want like a decently high price because he's still a young player. I don't know. I don't necessarily think it's doable.
Going into restricted free agency and have his bird rights, like they could at least like squirrel some value out of that,
exactly,
more than what the Bucks could offer. But
I think it's realistically possible. I mean, I think if you're the Bucks, you're offering 1 to 2 guys in the same boat, and then maybe like a second round pick or 2. And I think it works more than I would normally say it does. Because let's be honest. I mean, John Hammond is John Hammond, but do they really want to pay another young center and just have 2 guys on $100 million over 4 years to 2, probably neither of whom are all-stars?
No.
That's not really a hot take. I mean, Wendell Carter's look good, but not all-star good. And I think do they have Lopez for another year as well, or is he expiring?
I think just a 1 year.
Yeah, he was a mid-level.
But it's not even like you could say like, oh, we're not going to trade Rolo or buy him out because it's like, well, you still have like the veteran presence that he brings to a team that's currently last in the East, even may have the worst record in the league.
Yeah.
So like from that perspective, like Mo Bamba is not the veteran, need that savviness of the locker room or whatever it is during a tough season. And that's where like I could see where they could kind of work out some deal like he just gets, off-streeted to a team that wants to have him, get a look at him or something like that. And like, as we saw last year for the trade deadline, they're pretty quiet. Like no one knew, like there's a lot of noise around Nikola Vucevic, but it was a lot of like, we're not going to trade him. And then all of a sudden they have that huge day where they trade him, Aaron Gordon, someone else too. I'm forgetting. Oh yeah, Fournier. Yeah.
Fournier.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So they, I think that's also key in that, like, whatever reporting is out there now, it's definitely, you have to keep it with like a, with some salt, a grain of salt.
And just to compound on that point of reasons they might, and all the reporting has been, they would like to keep Robin Lopez. I think if he asked for a buyout, they'd probably give it to him. There's been no indication that he wants one. And I think with more regular playing time, if they do trade Bamba, probably even less reason he would want one. Does sound like they're at least trying to move on from the only 2 other real vets on the team, right? Like, it seems like everything I've heard is that Terrence Ross, like, somebody please give us 2 good seconds and you can have Terrence Ross. And Gary Harris kind of rehabbed the value over the last month. I thought he was going to be a bad buyout guy. Right now, he looks like a good buyout guy, but more likely somebody trades for him to be, backcourt depth. So if one or both of those guys moves, they get even younger, probably. And then Lopez potentially becomes more important as a voice in the locker room. So we'll see. I like the Bamba idea. I think it's one of those, like, it's a Portis-esque swing, right? If this guy works, he's on the timetable. And even easier than Bobby, there's a clear framework to keeping him. We know how John Horst feels about bird rights, at least in his quotes.
We know how he feels about him.
Yeah. But anyway, I think Mo Bamba is intriguing. Alex Len, deeply depressed. I don't. He's become pretty good. I think I unfairly remember him as being terrible on his rookie deal. He's okay now. Where is he?
Derek, Sacramento.
He's on the Kings still. Yeah.
Derek Favors is very similarly depressing to me too.
The problem.
I mean, he's fine. Like. I don't know. There was something like, I think it was when, because he's kind of bounced around.
Yeah.
Since leaving Utah. Then he got traded to Pelicans, came back to Utah. and now is with the Thunder. And it's like, not to belabor this point, but like when you're kind of like offloaded as like a salary dump to OKC, but you hang on there. Like it wasn't like, oh, we're gonna do a friendly deal for Kemba. He's like, no, I'll play. Like I'll stay in Oklahoma City. That's where it's just like, oh, you kind of get a little sad about. And he's not played much, huh?
I mean, I don't know. Does being the highest paid player on the team hold some weight? Like.
I don't think he is technically the highest paid player, but they also have like all like the dead cap hits that are just like sitting there. Like
Kemba Walker is the highest paid player on the OKC Thunder this year.
Yeah,
which is crazy. The thing for me with Favors is just he's probably not getting bought out. His next year is a player option, and I don't want to trade 2 rotation pieces for Derek Favors. And he makes $9.7 million. So you're talking like
I don't think you can even get. I mean, you'd have to like include like George Hill.
Right? Or Pat. There's no way I'm trading either of those guys and Dante for Derek Favors. I think maybe if you do like Dante, Shemi, Hood, you get there. But then it's like, how much tax is that adding for Derek Favors? Like at that point, it would have been cheaper to just have Boogie. And maybe I think Boogie is probably an option at some point. He doesn't play in Denver. We'll see if they retain him.
He had 3 technicals in like his first 13 minutes. Which is like, that's pretty impressive.
I miss him so much.
I know. I'm hoping they don't sign him for the year. But okay, those are Adam's guys. Who wants to go first with your fake trade? Bucks.
You go first.
My 3-teamer? We're just getting it out. Okay.
Yeah, let's just do it.
The Oklahoma City Thunder is involved. The Thunder is involved. The Bucks receive Mike Muscala and Kenrich Williams. Everyone should have expected I trade for Kenny Hustle. I'm obsessed. I just think, talk about a defensive four, not as good of a rebounder as PJ, but a lot younger and shoots much better. Oh, this year PJ is, I don't know, like a triple-double, 50-40.
He's the best three-point shooter in the league percentage-wise this year.
It's obscene.
PJ is?
Yeah.
I knew it was good. I didn't know it was that good.
Wow.
It's very good.
Just relax with the try hard. It's sickening how well it works. But the Bucks get so
it works in the regular season, Ty.
Yeah, fair. Muscala is like Derek Favors if he made a third as much and could shoot and was not very good defensively. I just think
so he's Ersan,
but a little bigger than Ersan. I look at him.
I've always had a Mike Muscala Ersan comp just sitting in my head.
Stop.
They played all. I think were they on the same Sixers Hawks? They probably played with each other.
Unless they couldn't, because they're actually the same guy. And they that's trade off being out.
Ersan Muscala.
But I look at and having a guy you could yell Moose for would be fun again too. It's been a while, but I look at him as like that backup center idea we talked about, where it's like he's not going to play every night when they're healthy, but it'll be nice to have him over the next couple months. And Kenny Hustle's the big acquisition. So then the Thunder don't get any players from the Bucks. They do get a 2022 second round pick, but they get Rodney McGruder and Jeremy Grant from the Detroit Pistons. And the Pistons get Derek Favors, Dante Wara, and 2 bad firsts from Oklahoma City. So my thought for that, let me explain before you plan the trade. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has already signed his extension. I think it kicks in next year. And there's already fan bases, and I think also teams pining to go get Shai Gilgeous-Alexander from the wasteland that is Oklahoma City. As much as they might want to, they can't do this tanking thing forever. At some point, with Shai being as good as he is, they need to put a real team together. I think Jeremy Grant fits really well with Shai and Josh Giddey. I think he adds a little bit of what they need. And I think then you're like a center away and a couple rotation pieces from a real basketball team. And I think they're going to need one of those eventually. Wow, you guys hate it.
I'm looking at Rohan and I'm waiting for him.
Can I explain the first?
I do. I will say I do agree that they have to stop doing what they're doing.
This is the last year. And it's even better. Grant's been hurt, so they can do that thing where they just lie and say he's hurt. And he plays
how they do
it
with Horford.
Yeah, he's going to play 5 games for them, and then they lose a bunch still. Shai is now, quote-unquote, hurt again, too.
Grant would come back
actually hurt
to OKC, too.
What do you mean? Oh, yeah, the next year. Exactly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
he's got another year. So that's the year you're really trading for. And the
Yeah.
two first they give up, one is actually Detroit's first, and it's super protected over the next 5 years. And it either conveys as like a not top 10 first 4 years from now or a 2027 second. So honestly, you're just like giving Detroit like some flexibility back, probably more than anything. And the other one is Phoenix's first this year, which obviously is going to be 30. So do the Thunder really care to pick that much at 30? Last draft, they had to sell a first round pick for almost nothing because they have too many. They don't have enough roster spots. So my thing is the Thunder get a second rounder and they get a good player. And I just think they could probably use some of those at some point. And they get off Favors. That's the only reason they're trading Favors is just to not. Then they only add $10 million for next year with Grant.
Yeah.
So, in the race of the NBA arms race that is the NBA trade deadline, the team that gets Jeremy Grant is the Thunder.
Nobody else wants to go all in. I don't think
it's just taking me a little bit.
I
to
know
process.
it's a brain breaker.
Is the Wizards? They're like a prominent suitor, right?
Are they really? Just keep Kuzma. What? Why? The Wizards.
I don't think it would. Well, I guess he doesn't make enough money, but like they have.
I think the Wizards were more in for Sabonis.
They're in for both. That's what I keep seeing both of them.
That would be the most depressing trade deadline super team. They're like barely 500 after the deadline after trading for two $20 million plus players. We did it.
I mean,
we did 10-10 with these guys. It's great.
Okay, Ty, about your trade though. For the Bucks, I like it. It's good. I'm if you're trading for Jeremy Grant, you're extending him, which I know you took into account.
Yeah. He has another year. He's not expiring. But yeah, after that.
I know, but like that's been the noise is that whoever's trading for Jeremy Grant, they're gonna extend Jeremy Grant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just this broke me. This broke me.
Imagine if they find any center, right? I don't think I think JRE is okay. I don't know that much, but let's say either he's good or they find a center. Then you get Shea, Dort, Giddey, Jeremy Grant, a center. It's like probably a good team, at least a solid team. It's a fun team.
Mm-hmm.
Grant it is a good team. I like the construct of this. You might be onto something here.
I doubt it, but it would be fun. I think it'd be dope.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's not expecting that.
Well, really, I came to it because I was like, the thing that sucks about trades is salary matching, but not all teams have to. The Thunder it's actually kind of close because of Favors, but like the Pistons lose $7.5 million off their books because of this deal. The Thunder only take on like $5 million. But they could take on a lot more because they're like 17 million below the cap right now. So they can take on whatever they want as long as they finish a trade below the cap. So you get to get funkier. And obviously, if the Grant thing is stupid, the trade can just be simplified to Bucks and Thunder, and it's a lot less fun. But I like the Grant sauce in there.
It definitely is saucy. I'll say that.
I want to run this past the uncontested guys. I feel like they're gonna hate it, and Laz. Laz might hate it too. I'm not sure.
Or they might like it. Who knows?
I guess we'll see. Maybe they'll email it to Sam Presti. He'll get hives at the thought of trading 2 first-round picks for a 27-year-old.
Wait, he's like, wait, I'm the one giving up picks here?
I'm only taking back 1 pick.
I don't know if I can do this. He's like scratching his. I don't know if I can do that.
I'm trying to remember where I saw this, but is it true that they won a first rounder for Kenny Hustle?
Well, here's the thing. So on the low post, Zach said if he was Utah, he is not sending a first for him, basically, and bad players for salary. I thought that was interesting because Utah's first is like a nothing burger, and I think that's the kind of player who could really help Utah. So I think they might want it. I don't know if they actually are gonna get it though. Like if Utah is not trading a first for him, who is?
That's
a good point.
Because, I mean, that's Utah's need, right? Like, perimeter defense, like, number one, A1. That's their thing.
Especially, I mean, I'm not saying Joe Ingles is a all-NBA defender, but he was at least someone that could move.
Yeah, I mean, at least
his role.
This season,
gone.
Some deterioration. But, yeah, he's, like, a good two-way useful wing. And, yeah, he's not there anymore.
That's the thing, too, is that, like, I mean, I think, like, we talked about, even last deadline, Kenrich Williams was like a guy that was like, oh, like he would be really interesting on this team. And you look at the contract that he's on, and it's like, are you like, it's tailor made for a team like the Bucks that cannot trade. They can only trade pennies.
Yeah.
And you're just like, how do you get this guy? It's like, well, you have to have a first round pick. It's like, damn, we traded all those already. if they hold to that bargaining tactic, which he also said that he wanted to retire with the Thunder, which is that's a very bold proclamation.
I mean, you could be one of their first, like their second retired jersey at this point.
I mean, number 2, Darren Collison.
That is true. Nick Collison. Darren Collison is
I was like, why would they, do not retire Darren Collison's jersey. Oh my God.
Kenny Hustle, this is actually, it's funny, it was a Pelicans deal. 3 years, $6 million, 2 per year. Third year non-guaranteed, which doesn't
and that
really
came
matter.
as part of the Drew trade.
Oh yeah.
So the Bucks kind of necessitated that whole thing.
Let's close the loop. Bring him back. Okay, enough about Kenny Hustle and Jeremy Grant to the Thunder.
Okay,
as fun as
Jordan, who's your trade? What's your trade?
Okay, these are not great names, and it's very just simple, cut and dry.
So it's realistic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Probably more so than I care to admit, and it's not very fun. But I try to get out of my like, hey, this guy's interesting. Garrett Temple was a guy that came to mind, not doing well at all this year. Terrible. I was like, okay, let's not go there. Wing defender, but it was like your kind of like stock wing defender. I kind of got a little creative, and I wanted to see if it could, jive with what's being reported. Again, take reporting around this time great with salt. So I shot for the moon for a team that is in the mix of the West. I believe they're like 8th, so they're in the play-in region. What if the Bucks try to trade for like Nick Batum?
Ooh, I actually do it does feel like the Clippers are open for business.
So it's hard to really read which way they're going to go. Do they want to still do this play-in dance? I mean, they could still make the play-in because like the Kings are 11th and they're so bad, or no, New Orleans is, and they still might make it.
Yeah.
The one thing is that they need, apparently they're looking for point guard help, and Dante DiVincenzo is not a point guard, even though
Depends.
I mean, we know that he's not a point guard. Do they know that? That's the problem. Does Jerry
Maybe
West
people not watching Bucks games is a good thing here.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So that's where I kind of got a little bit like, hey, maybe that's a kind of an interesting. I mean, he's affordable. That was my kind of like dream target, I would say. Another guy that came to mind too is JaMychal Green. Kind of a weird situation where Denver just always has too many bodies. Jeff Green probably is playing better than him.
Yeah.
Even though there's been noise about him being among the.
I'd take either of the Jay Greens on the on the
both
Nuggets.
look good to me.
Same, yes. Especially after watching them Sunday.
Yeah.
I just think like eventually Nuggets are banking on Murray. That's where it kind of gets a little tough where, okay, if you send a guy like Dante Dante's only a person of value. They have Austin Rivers, they have Bones Highland, they have Campazzo, they have they just traded for Bryn Forbes. Like they have a lot of backcourt guys that it's like maybe a little tougher. But JaMychal Green's another kind of like guy, switchy defender that can kind of be. He's not a great center. He's a decent forward, but I think kind of fills that role of, playing off of Giannis, so you can get a little bit more defensive, I don't know, intensity, focus, all that stuff that they need.
The athleticism would be nice too, because like for as strong as Shemi is, he's not like an explosive athlete. So having
no one on this Bucks team is an explosive athlete outside of Giannis.
Thanasis. How dare you forget
the highest?
Oh yeah, Thanasis. In the rotation. But like this is something that I've wanted on this team for a while. Is like literal bounce. Like even like Pat, sure, he's bouncy. What are you throwing lobs to Pat Connaughton? Like is he like an actual like vertical spacing threat? No.
We don't know that yet though.
Bobby is probably the closest.
Yeah, Bobby's the closest, and he's like slow-footed for his size.
Yeah. He's not like a roll down the rim and throw down a dunk. He's He's like a gather and then leaper.
Yeah.
It's just slow.
Yeah.
Like even his jump shot, like everyone gets there and contests the shot because it takes him 5 years to shoot it. Just get some athletes on the team.
Batum is not that, but he would be fun.
No.
And, the salary at $3.1 million this year, and then does he have an option?
Yes, he does. Player option.
Okay, so yeah, he's either around or not. But and you can get there salary wise, like Wara and Shemi, and you're there. I don't know. You probably have
he's
to
also
throw a second round pick, but
he's also someone that I think if you're kind of like constructing a Bucks deal for like a veteran and you want value, I mean, he's playing as good as he has ever played.
Yeah.
In part because of the role that he has. But I do think there's like some more value that you get out of him than, if it's like, oh, we want to we know that, we all thought that maybe they would try to get PJ back, but they obviously looked at it as more of a rental. But two would still have value to them even when you're trading if you're trading Dante for him or whatever.
Yeah.
You would still you're putting one of your chips on the table, but you can still say, oh, we can want to bring Batum back next year. We know the history of that. So
yeah,
that might not be as apt, but those are the guys I came up with. It's not an illustrious list.
I like Batum partially because I think whether it's Dante or Wara, or I guess both, are the Clippers maybe the best team in a position to say we're kind of punting this year, but we have a lot of minutes to try and develop role players. So we are interested in we're going to give Dante and Wara a bunch of starts, a bunch of opportunity, and see if we can retain either for next year when Kawhi and PG are back.
Yeah.
I think that would be their move, basically.
That was the thing looking around is you have these key, or not to step on what Rohan's targets might be, but there are the bad teams. But there's not again, last year there was a PJ Tucker on those bad teams, or I can't think of another
Or is there?
Oh.
Well, I will give the floor to Rohan.
Okay. You want to know a team that's really struggling right now out in the Western Conference?
The Kings.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's a bunch of them. I shouldn't have just led
the
with
Lakers.
that.
Blazers?
Yes, the Portland Trail Blazers.
Oh no.
Oh god.
Okay. It's not who you guys think.
Good.
I think I do know though.
So Mr. Patrick himself, Larry Nance Jr.
Okay.
Larry Nance Jr. If you're talking athletes, if you're talking someone who can play the floor.
Oh my goodness.
That Bleacher Report video.
I just
it'll that's iconic. That is absolutely iconic. But he's someone who's a capable athlete. He can space the floor, maybe not insanely amounts. He's not shooting that well right now in Portland, but through his career, he's been a mid to high 30s 3-point shooter. So someone who's capable, someone who's definitely capable of rolling, creating out of the short roll, can size up, can size down, downsize, whatever we established earlier. He might be this year's PJ Tucker. He might be. You can get the salaries to work if you include Dante, Shemi Hood, and obviously you need to give some picks to the Blazers because he's only making 10 mil, 10 and a half, and he's descending. So it's not a terrible contract. I think he'd fit really well on this team. He's 6'7". He's profiles as a stretch big, but he's also capable, like I mentioned earlier, of creating out of the short roll, creating just in general, having someone else who you can trust to have the ball in their hands who's not named Giannis, Chris, or Drew. And he can defend.
I think my biggest... I almost like it better if you don't think Brooke is going to make it back. I just pick and roll guys sometimes just don't work that well on the Bucks because they just don't do it enough. And I don't know if he would be very good if he played with Brooke. But I do think if it was he and Giannis, those lineups could be fun. But that'd be my main concern. I feel like that probably is what he does best in some ways. And I just don't know if the skill set matches that well. But I do think he's intriguing. And I'm probably more interested in him than Rocco. Although I'm so tired of Robert Covington. I do think he'd probably be helpful, but I'm just so tired of Robert Covington.
I don't want to be a part of this team to be a part of the Robert Covington discussion. So I just don't want him on the team.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's just boring at this point. Who cares? I don't know why a player like Robert Covington, who's just never been a star player, he's been a good rotation guy for years now, has just been the center of so many debates. Come on, we're having so many debates about Thaddeus Young, about Tony Snell, so many debates about, I don't know, Ursan. I just these type of guys. Why?
He has the Jay Crowder type contract that always makes him trade fodder.
Yeah.
Because he was on Minnesota, gets traded to Houston, gets traded to Portland, and it's just
Sixers before all of that.
Yeah, Sixers before all. It's been diminishing returns where he is a good player. You ask him to defend well, he's an okay shooter, more of high volume shooter, not the greatest percentage wise, but yeah, he's just kind of stuck in this he just goes from team to team to team to team, and then it's all depending on the situation where if he can play up to his role and everybody around him is perfectly in place, that's where you could say oh well, put him on a team next to Drew Holiday, Giannis, Chris Middleton. Life is a lot easier for Robert Covington. Whereas when he was on Houston or even with the Blazers the last couple of years, they'd be oh, you're gonna have to defend the best guy on the other team every night. Whereas it would be a little different where he doesn't have to have necessarily the same role or we need you to be the best defender on our team every night. But I also think having high expectations about Robert Covington has also kind of blown up in
it has
a lot of people's
doomed
face.
4 teams in a row. Teams in a row have thought Robert Covington could be the 4th best.
The Rockets thought he was a center
on their title team.
Yeah,
well, him and PJ, but yeah,
then he had to play that with their small ball unit.
But he hasn't always. Philly thought he was, and they had Jimmy Butler and Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. He didn't have to be the best defender there.
No, he was part of the Jimmy Butler trade.
Oh, never mind. But yeah, he had the other 2 guys. He was in Philly for longer than I remembered on some of the actual good Philly teams. Then Minnesota thought that he could be, an elite player for a little bit, maybe not elite. And then Houston, and then Portland, and it's just they were all wrong. He's not. He's really more of maybe a 5th starter, maybe coming off the bench. I just think people get so juiced about him. He's literally at his prime was roughly Pat Connaughton. And I think Pat's a little better.
Who's better right now, Wes Matthews or Robert Covington?
Wes Matthews.
It's a question though.
It is a question. I would still say Covington just because I do think he does a little bit more.
I would say Covington too.
I don't trust him to hit a shot.
That's also the problem.
I still have
this year.
I still have hesitation trusting Wes to hit a shot.
I trust Wes this year more. Something's different with Wes. I'm all in.
This year Wes is different.
This year Wes is different. Rocco did shoot 80% last year, but yeah, 34 this year, 33 the year before that, then 37, 33, 35. I don't know. I don't think the defense is
It's league average 3-point shooting.
Yeah. And I think Wes is a slightly better defender. I know he's smaller and it seems like Rocco would be better, but Wes played solid defense on Kevin Durant. I think Kevin Durant would like playing against Robert Covington more than Wes Matthews is the way I'll put it.
Yeah.
I think Wes is just stronger.
He is.
Covington is more longer, and he's always been really good at playing passing lanes. And
that's because that's what his defensive acumen is. He's not the greatest ISO defender of all time. That's never what he's been.
Yep. The more you put him in
just
actions,
get confused. People think if you're a good defender, that means oh yeah, you can take guys one-on-one. No, that's not what a good defender means necessarily.
Yeah,
there are multiple. I know it is. I'm saying there's multiple facets to defense that people don't take into account, and I feel like the what's the word I'm looking for? The profile of Robert Covington is just oh yeah, great defender, which means he'll get the best player every night. He's going to be a great ISO defender. No, he's not. That's not Robert Covington. It never has been and never will be.
Yeah,
he's a good system defender.
Yeah, which is why he was never a great defender.
Yeah, exactly.
That's he got this profile because he's on good defense. He's part of good defensive teams, but it's like if you're not going to be able to stop guys, on at least a good amount of time for defense, well, like when you are the on-ball defender, you're not that great of a defender. Team defense is useful, but I mean, teams will find the ways to pick on the guys who can't get stops consistently. And I'm not saying he can't, but.
It's not like he's a bad ISO defender. No, it's just like he's just fine. Just like he's above average. Just like
Pat Connaughton. I think he's better than Pat on the defensive end a little bit, but not that much.
So do we like Larry Nance? Though? I feel like we talked more about the guy we're not trading for from Portland.
In fairness, the guy I think who's been in more trade rumors this year.
Yes.
But what do you think, Jordan? I kind of like Larry Nance.
I like him a lot. And I do agree with Rohan that they need like an athlete at the 4/5 who could kind of do exactly what Larry Nance does. Like, yeah, you lose a little bit of shooting, but he's also he plugs in a lot of different ways that you can kind of neutralize that, or at least that doesn't have to be as big of a deficiency as it looks on paper. It would. I do think there is something to the fact of it would be a thing of if Brook, for whatever reason, knock on wood, I'm knocking all the wood I see around my computer right now. If he doesn't come back, that would be okay, last ditch effort. Let's bring in a guy who can kind of fortify the front court, does a little bit of a different dimension, which would be key for bench lineups where you're just not throwing those guys out there just to kind of eat up minutes at sometimes. I think from that standpoint, he would be really interesting, and he's under contract for another year too. So it's not like he's an expiring. You would have value from that angle too. So I do like it. I think it is bolder. I'm never one for bold trades, obviously, as my trade targets look. But I do think there is something that he could bring to the Bucks that would be really intriguing.
And it's not like even if you lose shooting, PJ wasn't a great shooter in the playoffs.
That's the thing. He can easily be a guy that can stand in the corner, or if you're on possessions or stuff like that, where it's they might not be the greatest shooter from where the Bucks historically look to have a lot of shooting, but there's ways to go around that. Like you said, PJ just stood in the corner, and sometimes it went in, sometimes it didn't, but it didn't hurt them to the effect of he was still so integral to their, winning the title last year and playing 30 plus minutes a night.
Okay. You guys won me over a little bit. We're running short on time. So quickly, the trades that could shake up the conference or the league. I think the obvious one is Ben Simmons going somewhere because Philly gets players who will actually play back, and Philly has looked good even without that. And maybe I don't know if Ben Simmons is going to go to a team in the East that would really change anything where he arrives, at least not for this year. But I think just Philly having more pieces is probably the part of that.
I think, mine was the Kings getting Ben Simmons. I know both teams have come out and say we're not doing this. That usually means there's something there. The Kings always say they're not going to trade the guy, then immediately trade the guy. Yeah. It's true what they do. Just ask DeMarcus Cousins. I forget who the other guy. But most recent example is DeMarcus Cousins.
Buddy Hield.
But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
But if the Sixers get guys like Harrison Barnes, I know there was a weirdly massive trade proposed, Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris to the Kings for Harrison Barnes, Buddy Hield, and Halliburton. That would make the Sixers really, really good.
Yeah.
That would make the Sixers very good.
Yeah.
They've taken on the Orlando Magic. We're not going to trade Nikola Vucevic. And maybe they don't. I don't know if they truly are out of the Ben Simmons angle, but they also are at a position where you can still have everybody together and they're as bad as they are. And then I don't know, they're such a weird team, and they're always in the trade deadline. It's always someone going from that team to another team that's like, okay, the Kings just made another trade, and does it solve what happens in Sacramento? No.
It's a cycle of mediocrity.
Yeah.
Yes, it's terrible. Simmons is always. I mean, if Daryl Morey just stops doing what he is doing, like
they keep doing it, Daryl. Keep doing it.
I know exactly. Like, extend this title window for the Bucks even further if you really want to. Like, it is just, it's the sleeping giant. If they could just bring in, like, not all-star players or the players that they want back, and they could be so good, and I would really, like, respect them and be afraid of them if they just stop doing this whole dance of, I don't even know what to call it at this point. This gridlock. I don't know. But yeah, Ben Simmons definitely. I don't know if Jeremy Grant.
I just don't know where he would go that I would care that much.
Like, if it is the Wizards and stuff like that, it's like, great. Maybe they get out of the play-in. I mean, they're not in the play-in.
Maybe they can make the play-in.
Yeah.
Cool. That doesn't really shake up anything.
They can trade for Domantas Sabonis and Jeremy Grant and still lose to Toronto in the play-in and then not go to the playoffs.
Entirely.
What if,
I mean, that's what happened last year.
Yeah.
They made the move with Westbrook and then, they made the playoffs.
Yeah,
but they just got trucked.
Westbrook sold so hard. Like, I think they actually could have pushed Philly in that series, and Westbrook blew like 3 fourth quarters. But the Bulls got Vucevic and then didn't make the play-in.
Yep, that's right. Harrison Barnes is like, he's a useful player where, like, he's kind of in that Grant area where it's like, useful player. Does he land on a team that will move, like, affect standings this year? Probably not.
The salary is just so high.
That's the other thing too. Is there anyone else?
If the Celtics manage to get a point guard,
I won't care.
Yeah, it might
Something's
be
off.
gone.
Something's off. Unless they actually trade Smart and it turns out Smart, which I don't think, but maybe. But something's just off with that team. They have 15 players only meetings a month. Like, they're not going to win a lot until they figure out what the hell is going on there. And who knows what the answer is? Maybe if they win more, it would help. Maybe it does work that way. But I'm not going to fear the Celtics this year. I don't think there's anything they could do. I don't think there has been anything they could have done since losing out on Anthony Davis, quite honestly. But like,
which they did to themselves.
Yeah.
AD's dad was like, yeah, no.
Yeah. Yeah, because the Isaiah Thomas thing.
Yep.
Is there anything?
John Collins?
Again, like, well, where, like, if they
Philly?
Yeah, I was going to say Philly.
Is that if they do the Simmons?
That'd be interesting.
Would you be more afraid of Philly or Atlanta?
Philly.
I don't know if I like John Collins in Philly.
It's a weird fit.
It feels like they kind of have the same Tobias Harris problem. Like, they're almost too big.
I don't think the problem necessarily is that they're too big. I think it's like they're too lethargic.
Yeah. Especially
John Collins does not like make that problem continue.
Like, well, what are they finding a way to deal Tobias, or do they have all three?
Could have all three.
I don't like that for them at all.
I feel like Tobias plays more as a 3 though, rather than a 4.
It's just so weird.
It is a weird fit.
And also,
I think they'd be better.
I do think
nothing
at this point. Yeah. But also, does it solve like their Tyrese Maxey is turning out to be a really good player.
Yeah, that's the difference for them.
But that's like their only point guard lead ball handler.
Yeah.
Like, I know Embiid's their,
engine.
Yeah.
He's their Embiid.
Yeah. But he can't alone get him the ball. Like,
yeah.
It still comes when it's playoff time, and it's really about execution and strategy and how teams, defend other teams in ways that you don't see in the regular season. That's going to be a big problem. That's part of why they still, I guess, Daryl Morey still feels like Ben Simmons could be a good fit for their team. And all this leverage and all this stuff like that. Like, I don't know. Like, I think John Collins is always going to be a trade rumor. It just feels like that's his lot in life. Because whenever the Hawks are not doing well, it's, John Collins said something, and
I think Sacramento is probably my scariest Simmons trade team. if you're getting Halliburton back or Fox or even just Barnes and Heald. Like Indiana, because Brogdon can't be traded. If you want to go get Karis LeVert and Sabonis wouldn't make any sense. TJ Warren's not playing. That'd be a little scary, I guess, if they had LeVert and I don't know if LeVert's even that good. Like, I'm not worried about that. I don't know who else is. Portland, if they want to bring over poor CJ McCollum, I wouldn't be that afraid of CJ and Embiid. Embiid's really good.
Do you think CJ wants to go to the Phillies medical staff?
Probably not. The
Good luck with James Harden then. They're really big on that. Like,
I was gonna ask, the Nets can't really do anything, right?
No.
Like they can get rid of one of their old forwards and maybe like sign a guy, but then unless they trade Joe Harris, which
they won't.
That's a really well apparently, and now his recovery has not gone well with his ankle surgery, which like
nothing there is going well. They're a mess.
They are a mess.
6 straight losses.
The quotes are amazing content though.
Oh yeah.
It's just like Harden saying, if you touch a guy, it's 2 free throws now. You can't do anything defensively. It's just awesome. Kyrie saying we can't really all play together. It's like awesome. Yeah. It's like good job, guys.
There's ways to where you could play together.
Way to be completely self-aware of who you guys are as players.
Also, he said teams are playing playoff adjustment basketball against us after they lost to the Kings. Kyrie, you hadn't even yet committed to Duke the last time the Kings made the playoffs.
Yeah. Like what? Who on that team knows anything about playoff adjustments besides Harrison Barnes?
Kyrie hadn't even committed to a high school yet the last time the Kings made the playoffs. What was it, 04?
Something like that.
Oh, was it 06? Maybe he was in high school. I apologize. He might have been in high school. Yeah, playoff adjust. Yeah, did De'Aaron Fox's playoff mode. It's scary. Harrison Barnes, playoff killer. Just ask the 2016 Warriors about that one.
He did well in 2015, though.
He did. He's a fine player. He's gotten better.
I would love Harrison Barnes on the Bucks. It's just not feasible.
Yeah. No, too much salary.
Okay. Do we have any other trades that would shake up the league, or just any other last thoughts on this trade deadline?
If the Bulls get Jeremy Grant, I think they're better. It doesn't sound like they're going to do it.
Yeah,
I do think they're better.
Yeah, they're better.
I don't know if they'll win the East better, but
I feel like had he not gotten hurt, Miles Turner may have been in this discussion, but
maybe. I don't know what team he would go to that, at least in the East, that he would change that much for them.
I think Jordan says the Bucks.
No, I think that's a big swing. If we're avoiding big swings, that's
Charlotte's always been kind of an interesting team for him, but like that's also because who's their starting center right now?
Miles Plumlee, right?
Or Mason, right?
Mason Plumlee.
Yeah, it's more of like, can you get actually like a starting center? Not like somebody that you say declare as a starter.
You're right.
I can't think of any other like guys that would shake up the landscape.
I mean, teams in the West, it seems like the Suns would probably maybe they go get Eric Gordon or something. That's probably the most dramatic thing they do. They could be better. That's scary. They're really good.
Yeah, they want a shooter, probably.
Yeah, I think so. But they're probably not going to change their starting lineup.
No.
So
Golden State, they're really. I mean, record-wise, they're second, but like, there's still something.
They're falling apart a little bit. Draymond's
because Draymond,
Well, and Steph can't hit a shot anymore.
And Clay's, that's going to be tough to kind of integrate him back in.
So you're kind of seeing why they didn't go all in and trade Kuminga and Moody and everything for Sabonis or whatever. Because I mean,
Moody had a great game last night.
Like if Steph, Clay, and Draymond are all not 100%, it doesn't matter if you have Sabonis. You're not going to beat the Suns. Like you need those guys to be playing at apex levels. So. And Utah again does anyone care if Utah gets Kenny Hustle?
I think it's done.
Yeah, I don't think they like.
How many screen assists is Kenrich Williams gonna have? We'll see.
What are the Lakers going to trade? Kendrick Nunn and Talen Horton-Tucker for Eric Gordon.
Surprisingly, his value, THT's value, is really low.
Can't believe the guy making $2 a year who can't hit a shot is not.
I don't know that Eastern GM who said he was going to get a max contract is just shaking in his boots right now.
Jerry West literally flamed Lakers organization. I wish I would have played for another team where my okay.
Ever since, I don't know if he left or if he was like ousted, but ever since he left that front office, there's been no love lost.
You know what's wild? Ever since Mitch Kupchak left the Lakers front office, they've been really struggling. And everyone was like, oh, Mitch has got to go. Mitch has got to go. Look at what Charlotte's doing.
Yeah.
I think we all owe Mitch Kupchak an apology, and those are words I did not think I'd ever say.
He still did sign Timofey Mozgov.
And Luol Deng. He gave like $150 million to those guys
in 10 minutes. The first 10 minutes of free
I think that was just like AARP stuff. Benefits.
Tibbs AARP. You only have to be 30 to qualify. I think anyone can actually join AARP. There's your fun fact of the
That's how we sign off our trade up. Everybody can join our
no free ads.
Okay, if we're talking about that, I think we should wrap this up. Yeah. Say thank you for listening to this episode here on the Gyro Step Podcast Network. If you did enjoy the show, make sure you subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. Make sure you rate 5 stars on Apple, Spotify. Make sure you leave a review if you want to get that read on the pod. Di, do we have a review?
We do. We got one more. Nick M. Jones 1111. The headline is 5 stars, of course. Got to be 5 stars to get read. Headline: Best Bucks Pod. Very succinct. Good headline. Strong. The review: hands down my favorite Bucks pod, and also actually my favorite pod, in quotes, probably due to my love of the Bucks, end quotes. That's a very nice review.
There we go.
Very succinct.
Thank you.
Yeah. Appreciate that.
Glad we can provide you guys good content. That does mean a lot. Thank you, Mike, whatever the numbers were.
Nick.
Nick. I said Nick.
I thought you said Mike.
Did I say Mike?
I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I heard Mike.
Oh, no. I meant to say. Okay, we should stop. Make sure you subscribe to the Substack, gspn.substack.com. Subscribe to the YouTube, Pod Random, and we will talk to you next time.